So, in my planning process reflection, um, I when I was writing the lessons, and to address the first question, alignment, explain how your learner segment goal and lesson objectives are aligned, and how your learner segment goals aligned with standards, and focus your learner's IEP goals. This particular student, however, it was a classroom full of targeted students and several LD and I believe, and then one or two EBD students. I did focus on kind of mainly one throughout all my reflections. However, when I was planning my lesson, I did try to make accommodations and modifications for all of the students who struggled academically and emotionally. So, um, all of my lesson objectives were geared towards really persuasive writing, but having in mind the one student's IEP goal of writing. Um, and then I think in one of his writing goals, it's to his main objective is to, or measurable objective is to um, continue to improve in his writing and um, form a paragraph using a topic sentence and um, detailed sentence that follow in a conclusion sentence. So I really had three lessons that kind of led up to what I was going to use for the summative review. Um, so I think that in the end it aligned very well. And in the process, I was able to teach the whole entire class several other ideas. So, and then knowledge of the student. The particular student that I did kind of focus on, although there was I taught to a whole class. Um, he is receiving special education services in the EBD category. He has made strides in reading and decoding and fluency. However, like I said, he continued to need help or support in writing paragraphs. He enjoys reading when it's in the context of groups or working with peers, and then in game format. So I kind of incorporated that into my lesson plan as well. Made kind of some games of it to engage the students as well. Um, and then the supports section describes supports and, oops, I'm sorry, got the wrong page here. The context for learning, describe the setting. It was a summer school setting with approximately 20 to 25 students in the classroom, mainly targeted students, SLD, EBD, majority Hispanic background. The curriculum that I used was based off of something I'd used at school, along with some other resources that one of the teachers shared with me from a website called Read, Write, Think website. The number 3, describe the classroom behavior management plan. I was in the classroom for a week and a half, and I was able to kind of build a rapport with the students prior to these lessons. So I did kind of set up an expectation with them when I did my initial lesson of notice your neighbor. And basically, it's just simple rules. Be respectful, and I did relate back a lot to the learning community and how we need to respect one another and learn together. And I did make it very clear and concise that there will be consequences if you aren't participating or following directions or interrupting other students' learning. So, number 4, describe any special circumstances that'll allow your observer to understand your instructional decisions. I think I did do, you'll see in the lessons, I did some modifications kind of that went a little bit away from that lesson, but it was just kind of thinking on my feet and getting to know the students. I mean, I didn't know them very well, but getting to know them as I was doing the lessons, I was able to kind of modify things for the whole class, which I think is an important skill. I did, however, after maybe the first lesson, did modify my initial plan of how I grouped them. I did ask for assistance from the classroom teacher on who works well together. We spent a little time talking, and I also did my own observations and kind of broke them off differently. And then I also wanted to group them according to a little bit to their levels, where the students could learn from one another. Maybe the lower achievers with some of the higher achievers. And then the EBD students I wanted to place with, or the one particular EBD student I wanted to place him with a role model student. So I kind of observed that myself. The first day he chose to sit by some of his buddies that he kind of was goofing off with. So again, I kind of made a lesson for the whole group, but I had to do some modifications throughout in my planning, but also during instruction. Baseline data. Describe how you collected baseline data for this learning segment. I did do kind of a quick short mini lesson and asked for the students to write a paragraph for me on a specific topic of their choice. I just kind of wanted to get an idea. Really, that was my only way to kind of know where they were at other than looking at the IEP. And then I have a tool that I've used last year for collecting data on writing sentences and beginning and capitalization and punctuation and subject-verb agreement. So I use that kind of as my baseline data, along with some of the summer school teachers, which she had shared with me as well. Just not being able to see everything was somewhat a little bit difficult. So describe grouping decisions that were based off of the baseline data. Again, it kind of is the same thing that I planned as well, to kind of have in my quick observations and with the help of the teachers to kind of group them according to their abilities. I was going to initially have them pick their own groups, but I think that I'm glad I made the switch. The learning segment introduction, the subject area is it's persuasive writing, but writing. Learning segment topic was persuasion strategies, writing essays and paragraphs. The targeted Common Core standard was actually I kind of found two different areas. The Common Core standard of making informed judgments about messages promoted in mass media, examples film, television, radio, magazines, advertisements, and newspapers. And then also production and distribution of writing. The targeted IEP goal and objective is students will improve his or her writing skills from writing complete sentences to writing in a paragraph format. Measurable learning segment goal was student will increase his writing skills from a level of writing incomplete run-on sentences to writing in a paragraph format with a topic sentence, at least 3 detailed sentences, and a concluding sentence. The summative assessment was in the written essay they did at the very end of the third lesson on persuasion essay on candy. Is it good or bad for you? Lesson 1, measurable objective. I assigned the student that I was kind of observing mainly as a recorder one day for the group. That way he had to kind of do the writing and create the sentences for his group. And then also, I also measured through worksheets. But the goal or the measurable objective I had for him was, given a prompt, student will write at least 2 detailed completed sentences with a correct capitalization and punctuation and grammar 90% of the time. So I was able to do that through his recording, being recorder for his group for one of my small group sessions. Lesson 2, measurable objective. I assigned the students again as recorder for his group, and then my plan for assessment was just to give a topic sentence to write about a graphic organizer. The student will write a topic sentence with at least 3 detailed sentences and a concluding sentence with 90% accuracy. Lesson 3, measurable objective, was the paragraph in the essay. So I was able to, after he wrote his persuasion essay on candy, I was able to use all three plan, or for the assessment, I was able to use all three of the writing samples. Well, actually, throughout the whole lesson, I had different writing things I did where I collected data. Describe how you have sequenced the lessons in this learning segment to move the student toward the learning goal. So, again, I kind of got just kind of a brief background from the teacher, and I you know, I started with kind of giving them knowledge of what a persuasion speech was. So and then I tried to relate it to some of their prior knowledge, things they may be interested in. And I gave them an example. Actually, the EBD student, in one of his topics, and what he was interested in was animals. So I did pick for the second lesson persuasion essay that I found on, had to do with animals, and a lot of my persuasion strategies, such as ethos, research, and I used the advertising examples. I would try to find something related to animals so it would spark his interest. So, but I also think that all the other students, a lot of them enjoy that as well. One expressive or receptive communication skill that the students need in order to fully participate in the instruction was, I think for expressive communication, would have been, through writing, making requests, giving information, labeling things. They had to kind of label the definition, matching it to a picture on one of the worksheets. They had to repeat the persuasion strategies and share ideas. For receptive communication, the students needed to follow directions. They also needed to give an example of a strategy while they were already, examples were already on the smartboard, or we had taped them onto the wall, so they could either point, or I actually did have a nonverbal student in the classroom who did point I had him come up to the class to point to, if someone gave an example, or shared their essay, that he could come up to the board and point to which types of strategies he heard. Describe how you will support students' use of the communication skill. So again, for receptive, I provided lots of visuals for the students. I had a PowerPoint, and then I also had brought in advertisements. They brought in advertisements. Expressive, I think it's just a little interchangeable, but that I was able to keep the visuals up, and also when I was asking questions, and I was giving clues from time to time, just as simple as it starts with, or scientists do it. So I guess I just gave them clues. Describe how you will assess students' use of the communication skill. For receptive, I guess that was just simply if they followed the directions. And I felt a lot of the times in our small group break-off, that I was able to kind of assess this. I could kind of hit them individually and see if they understood what we were, the content we were studying. Expressive, I was able to assess that in their writing, in the worksheets, and in their essay. And then how did I collect data? I collected it mainly through observations of my own and their worksheets, and during the instruction, so my own observation. Number 11, how will I